Hey warriors. There is something you're doing right now that is quietly destroying your peace, your focus, and your self-control, and you don't even notice it. It feels normal. It feels justified. It even feels necessary. But that is the exact reason you feel drained at the end of the day, the exact reason your mind never stays still, the exact reason people seem to have more control over your emotions than you do. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You are giving away your attention to things that don't deserve it. Every time you react instantly, every time you feel the need to respond, to defend yourself, to prove a point, to explain, to argue, to show them you're not weak, you lose something. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. A piece of your control. A piece of your energy. A piece of your power. And the worst part? You've been doing it for so long, that it feels like that's just who you are. But what if I told you? It's not. What if I told you that the strongest people you've ever admired, the calmest, the most respected, the ones who seem unshaken no matter what happens, they all have one thing in common. They don't react like you do. They don't give their attention away so easily. They choose. And that choice is what gives them power. So let me ask you something and be honest with yourself. How many times has someone's words ruined your mood, your focus, your entire day? How many times have you replayed something in your head, over and over, wishing you said something different, something better, or something stronger? How many times have you felt that pressure in your chest, that urge to respond immediately, like if you don't say something right now, you'll lose? That feeling right there. That's the trap. And most people never escape it. But you're about to see it clearly. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because what you're about to understand is simple but brutal. The moment you react without control, you've already lost. Not the argument. Not the situation. Yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. But most people never realize it, because they're too busy reacting to everything outside of them. Someone says something you don't like, you react. Someone disrespects you, you react. Something doesn't go your way, you react. And every reaction is like handing over control of your mind to something or someone else. Think about that. Your mood, your peace, your focus, all controlled by things outside you. That's not strength. That's dependence. And it's exhausting. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because you might be thinking, so what, I should just stay quiet. Let people walk over me. No. That's not what this is. This is not about being weak. This is about being in control. There's a difference. A very big one. Because reacting is easy. Anyone can react. Anyone can argue. Anyone can shout, explain, defend, prove. But staying calm when everything inside you wants to respond, that is power. That is discipline. That is rare. And anything rare is respected. Let me show you something you've probably never noticed before. Think about the people you truly respect. Not the loud ones. Not the ones always talking. Not the ones always reacting. The ones who walk into a room and you just feel it. Calm. Composed. Unbothered. They don't rush to respond. They don't feel the need to prove themselves. They don't get dragged into every little thing. And because of that, they seem untouchable. That's not luck. That's control. Control over where their attention goes. Because attention is your most valuable asset more than time or energy. Because wherever your attention goes, your life follows. And right now, if you're honest, your attention is scattered, pulled in every direction. By people, by drama, by unnecessary conversations, by things that don't move your life forward. And it is costing you more than you think. Let's make this real for a second. Imagine someone says something that triggers you. Immediately, your mind starts racing. What did they mean? Why would they say that? I need to respond. I can't let that slide. And before you even realize it, you're already emotionally involved. Your peace is gone. Your focus is gone. All because of a few words. Now pause. Just for a second. Why do those words have so much power over you? Is it really what they said? Or is it the meaning you gave it? Because here's the truth most people avoid. It's not what happens to you. It's how quickly you hand it control. And most people hand it over instantly. No resistance. No awareness. Just reaction. And that's why they feel stuck. That's why they feel drained. That's why they feel like life is happening to them, instead of being controlled by them. But the moment you slow that down, the moment you create even a tiny gap between what happens and how you respond, everything changes. Because in that gap, that's where your power is. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But let's be honest. Most people don't react. They impulsively explode, or collapse, or overthink. That's not reaction. That's loss of control. And if you stay there, you'll keep losing quietly and daily, without even realizing it. So here's the shift. Not reacting is not weakness. It is a strategy. It is awareness. It is choosing not to give your energy to things that don't deserve it. And that one shift alone can change everything about how you experience your life. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Because most people don't even realize how often they're giving their power away. Not in big moments. In small ones. Arguments that don't matter. Comments that don't matter. Situations that don't matter. And yet they react to all of it. Like everything deserves their attention. Like everything deserves their energy. But it doesn't. And deep down, you know that. So let me ask you something again. How many of the things you reacted to this week actually mattered? Not in the moment. Right now. How many? Exactly. And yet they took your time. Your energy. Your peace. For nothing. That's the cost. And most people keep paying it every single day. Without question. Without awareness. Without control. But you're not going to be most people. Not after this. And if this is already hitting you, if you're starting to see yourself in this, do something simple. Don't overthink it. Just tap the subscribe button. Not because I'm asking, but because this is the kind of mindset that will slowly give you your control back. And you'll need reminders. Because the world will keep trying to pull you back into reaction. Now listen. This is where most people get it wrong. They think the goal is to win every argument. To prove every point. To respond to everything. But that's not power. That's noise. Real power is knowing what to ignore. And more importantly, having the discipline to actually ignore it. Because the truth is, every time you react, you add fuel to something that would have died on its own. Every time you engage, you extend something that didn't deserve your time in the first place. And every time you choose not to, you take that power back piece by piece. And the peace that comes with that, it's not small. It's life-changing. Because suddenly, things don't get to you like they used to. People don't control your mood like they used to. Situations don't pull you in like they used to. You start to feel steady, grounded, and clear. And that's where everything begins to shift. Now here's the part most people avoid. Because it requires honesty. Not everything deserves your reaction. In fact, most things don't. And if you can accept that, if you can really understand that, you've already taken the first step toward a level of control most people never reach. And we're just getting started. Because the next thing on my list is to show you something even deeper. Which is why reacting feels so necessary in the first place. And why breaking that pattern feels almost impossible, until you see it clearly. So let's go deeper, because this is where it stops being theory and starts becoming real. That urge you feel to react, it's not random. It feels automatic, almost like you don't have a choice. Someone says something sharp, and before you even think, your body is already tense, your mind already forming a response. It feels like if you don't say something, you lose. Lose respect. Lose control, or lose your position. But look closely. That feeling is not strength. It's fear. Fear of being seen as weak. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of not being in control. And that fear is what's been controlling your reactions this whole time. You're not reacting because you want to. You're reacting because something inside you feels threatened. And the moment you react from that place, you're no longer in control. You're being controlled. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Think about that. Most of the time, what pushes you to react isn't even the situation itself. It's the story you create around it. They disrespected me. They think I'm weak. I can't let this slide. But what if none of that is actually true? What if it's just your mind trying to protect an image, a version of yourself you feel you need to defend? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most reactions are not about what happened. They're about your ego trying to survive. And the ego hates silence. It hates being ignored. It hates not responding. Because silence feels like losing. But it is not. It is the opposite. It is control. And this is where the shift happens. Because once you realize that your reaction is being driven by fear, not logic, you start to see it differently. You start to pause. Even if it's just for a second. And in that second, you get a choice. React and stay in the cycle. Or stay still and break it. And breaking it feels strange at first. Almost uncomfortable. Because you're used to reacting. You're used to engaging. You're used to feeding every situation with your energy. So when you don't, it feels like something is missing. Like you should be doing more. Saying more. Defending more. But you're not. And that's the point. Because the moment you stop feeding something, it starts losing its power over you. Think about arguments you've had before. The more you replied, the longer it went on. The more you explained, the more it escalated. The more you tried to prove yourself, the more drained you felt. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine you didn't engage. No long explanations. No emotional reactions. Just calm and controlled silence. What happens? Most of the time, it dies. Because it needed your energy to survive. And you didn't give it. That's power. Not loud. Not dramatic, but undeniable. And here's something even more interesting. When you stop reacting, people notice. At first, they get confused. They expect you to respond. They expect the usual version of you. The one who reacts, who explains, who engages. But when that version doesn't show up, it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty shifts the dynamic. Suddenly they're the ones wondering. Suddenly they're the ones feeling the lack of control. All because you chose not to react. Now let's be clear. This is not about playing games. It's not about manipulating people. It's about mastering yourself. Because the real benefit isn't what happens to them. It is what happens to you. You become harder to disturb. Harder to provoke. Harder to control. And in a world where everyone is reacting to everything, that makes you different. That makes you rare. And being rare makes you stand out. Let me bring this closer to you again. Think about the last time you felt disrespected. Be honest. Did reacting actually make things better? Or did it just make you feel temporarily satisfied, before the stress came back? Because that's the cycle. You react, then feel justified, later you feel drained. Over and over again. But when you don't react, you skip the cycle completely. No emotional spike. No crash. Just calm. And that calm is addictive. In the best way. Because once you experience it, you don't want to go back. Now here's where most people struggle. They understand this, but they don't apply it. Because in the moment, it still feels hard. So let's make it practical. Next time something triggers you, don't try to be perfect. Don't try to become some emotionless version of yourself. Just do one thing. Pause. That's it. Even if it's just for 2 seconds. Pause before you respond. Because that pause breaks the automatic pattern. And gives you a chance to choose. You don't need to win the moment. You need to control yourself in the moment. That's the real win. And the more you practice that, the easier it becomes. Slowly, you stop reacting instantly. Slowly, you start observing more. Slowly, you feel less pulled into things. Until one day, something that used to trigger you doesn't. And that's when you realize you've changed. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped giving it control. If you're still here right now, that means something is clicking. So let me ask you something simple. What's one situation in your life right now that keeps pulling your attention? A person, a conversation, a pattern. You already know it. You don't need to think hard. Now imagine what happens if you stop reacting to it. Not forever. Just for a while. Just enough to take your control back. That one shift alone can change more than you expect. And if you know someone who keeps getting dragged into unnecessary drama, send this to them. Or better, don't say anything. Just change first. They'll notice. Now stay with me. Because what we're about to get into next is where most people completely lose their power without realizing it. The small reactions. The ones that seem harmless, but are quietly shaping your entire life. So this is where it gets uncomfortable, because the biggest damage is not coming from the big moments. It's coming from the small ones you ignore. The quick reply. The unnecessary explanation. The urge to correct someone. The need to respond to every little thing. It looks harmless. It feels normal. But it's slowly training your mind to react to everything. And once your mind gets used to that, you lose the ability to stay still. You lose the ability to stay focused. You lose the ability to choose. Because now, everything feels important. Everything feels like it needs your attention. And that's how you become scattered. Not because life is chaotic, but because your attention is. Think about your day. From the moment you wake up, how many things pull you in? Messages, comments, people, conversations, small irritations, little opinions, tiny distractions. And each one takes just a little bit of your energy. Not enough to notice immediately, but enough to drain you over time. By the end of the day, you feel tired. Not because you did something meaningful, but because you reacted to too many meaningless things. That's the cost no one talks about. And the worst part? You think it's normal. You think that's just how life is. But it's not. It is how you've been conditioned to live. Always available. Always responsive. Always reacting. And because of that, you're always drained. Let me show you something clearly. Every time you respond to something that doesn't matter, you're telling your mind, this is important. So your mind keeps bringing more of it. More distractions. More reactions. More noise. Until your entire mental space is filled with things that don't deserve to be there. And now, even when you try to focus, you can't. Because your mind is trained to jump, to react, to chase, to engage. That's not lack of discipline. That's misdirected attention. And here's where the shift begins again. Not everything deserves a response. In fact, most things don't. And the moment you start acting like that, your entire life begins to feel different. Because now, you're not reacting to everything. You're selecting. You're choosing. You're deciding what gets your energy, and what doesn't. That's control. Quiet control. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. Now let's make this even more real. Think about how many times you've argued over something small. Something that doesn't even matter at all. But in that moment, it felt important. It felt like you had to respond. Like you had to prove something. Like you had to win. But what did you actually win? Stress. Tension. A drained mind. Maybe even regret. Because deep down, you knew it wasn't worth it. But you still reacted. And that's the pattern. Over and over again. Until you decide to break it. Because here's the truth most people don't accept. You don't have to engage with everything that reaches you. You don't have to respond to every message. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. You don't have to prove your worth over and over again. You don't. But you've been acting like you do. And it's costing you your peace. Now pause for a second. Imagine a version of yourself who doesn't feel the need to respond to everything. Who doesn't get pulled into every small conflict. Who doesn't waste energy on things that don't matter. Just imagine that. How much calmer would you feel? How much clearer would your mind be? How much more focused would your life become? That version of you is not far away. It's just a version of you that chooses differently. That's it. No special skill. No complicated system. Just better choices about where your attention goes. And here's something most people don't realize until it's too late. Peace is not something you find. It is something you protect. And the way you protect it is by deciding what you allow into your mind. Every reaction is an open door. Every unnecessary engagement is an invitation. And if you keep opening those doors, you shouldn't be surprised when your mind feels crowded, noisy, restless. But when you start closing them, when you start saying, "This doesn't deserve my attention," everything changes. Slowly, the noise fades. Slowly, the tension reduces. Slowly, you feel like you're back in control again. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And reacting to everything, that's one of the biggest ways people waste their lives. Not in years, but in energy, in focus, in peace. So let me ask you something again. How much of your energy today went to things that didn't deserve it? Be honest. Because awareness is where this starts. And change is what follows. Now here's the part that will shift how you see people completely. Because it's not just about you reacting. It's also about understanding why some people try to make you react in the first place. And once you see this, you'll never look at certain behaviors the same way again. But before we go there, quick one. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching. You're thinking. So type one word in the comments. Control. Just that. It sounds simple, but it locks something in mentally. And if this is hitting deeper than you expected, save this video. Because you'll need to come back to it. Now listen carefully. Because what you're about to understand next is why ignoring is not just powerful but necessary. So now, let's expose something most people never say out loud. Some people don't want your peace. They want your reaction. Not always in an obvious way. Not always loudly. But watch closely and you'll start to see it. The subtle comments. The small jabs. The passive tone. The little things that feel like nothing, but somehow get under your skin. That's not random. That's attention-seeking behavior. And the moment you react, you reward it. You confirm it. You teach them, this works. And once something works, it repeats over and over again. Until you feel trapped in it. Drained by it. Pulled into it, even when you don't want to be. But here's the truth that changes everything. People who try to provoke you need something from you. They need your energy. Your attention. Your emotional response. Without it, they have nothing. So when you react, you're not just responding. You're feeding the cycle. And when you don't, you break it. It's that simple. But not that easy. Because in the moment, it still feels like you should say something. It still feels like silence means weakness. But look deeper. Why do they want a reaction from you so badly? Why does it matter so much to them? That's because your reaction gives them a sense of control. It makes them feel significant. It gives them validation even if it's negative. And when you understand that, everything shifts. Because now, instead of feeling attacked, you start seeing the behavior for what it is. Neediness. Insecurity. A search for attention. And suddenly, it doesn't feel as powerful anymore. Because you're no longer taking it personally. You're observing it. That's a different level. A higher level. And from that level, you don't react the same way. You choose. You step back. You stay calm. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you have nothing to prove. That's real strength. Now let's make this very clear. Ignoring is not about pretending nothing happened. It's about deciding. This is not worth my energy. That's it. And when you truly understand that, you stop feeling guilty for not responding. You stop feeling pressured to engage. You stop feeling like you owe everyone your attention. Because you don't. Read that again in your mind. You don't. Your attention is yours. Your energy is yours. Your peace is yours. And you get to decide who and what gets access to it. Not them, but you yourself. Now here's where it becomes powerful in real life. Imagine someone tries to provoke you. Before, you would react instantly. But now, you pause. You see it. You understand what's happening. And you choose not to engage. No explanation. No emotional reaction. Just calm detachment. What happens next? At first, they push harder. They try again. Maybe even more aggressively. Because they're used to getting a reaction. But when it doesn't come, something shifts. They lose momentum. They lose interest. They lose control. Because the game stopped working. And that's the key. You don't fight the game. You stop playing it. And when you stop playing, you win. Quietly. Completely. Now here's something even deeper. You're not just training them when you don't react. You're training yourself. Every time you resist the urge, you become stronger. Every time you stay calm, you build control. Every time you choose silence, you prove to yourself that you don't need to react to feel powerful. That's internal growth. Real growth. Not visible. Not loud. But unshakable. And over time, this changes how you see everything. You stop seeing every comment as a threat. You stop seeing every situation as something you need to fix. You stop seeing every opinion as something you need to respond to. Because now, you understand something most people never do. Not everything deserves your involvement. And that realization frees you completely. Now let's flip this slightly. Because it's not just about other people. It's also about something even closer. Something you deal with every single day, which is your own thoughts. But before we go there, let me say this quickly. If you're the kind of person who's always been pulled into unnecessary drama, and you're starting to see it clearly now, this is your turning point. So don't just watch this and move on. Share it with one person who needs it. Or better, keep it to yourself and apply it. Because the real flex is not talking about it. It's living it. Now listen. Because what we're about to get into next is where most people lose control without anyone else being involved. No arguments. No people. Just you and your own mind. And if you can master that, everything else becomes easier. Everything becomes real here, because even if you master ignoring people, there's something much harder to ignore, and that's your own mind. The thoughts that don't stop. The doubts that come out of nowhere. The voice that keeps replaying things over and over again. What they said. What you should have said. What might happen next. And before you even realize it, you're reacting again. Not to a person, but to your own thoughts. And the effect is the same. Your peace is gone. Your focus is gone. Your energy is drained. So understand this clearly. Ignoring is not just something you do externally. It's something you master internally. Because if you can ignore the noise inside your own head, Everything outside becomes easier. But if you can't, even silence won't give you peace. Now think about this for a second. How many times have you made a small mistake, and then spent hours replaying it, judging yourself, overthinking it, blowing it out of proportion? No one else is even thinking about it anymore. But you are. That's an internal reaction. And it's just as damaging as reacting to other people. Maybe even worse. Because there's no break from it. It follows you everywhere. And here's the truth most people don't want to face. Not every thought deserves your attention. Just like not every person deserves your reaction. But you've been treating every thought like it matters. Like it's important. Like it needs to be analyzed. Solved. Responded to. But it doesn't. Some thoughts are just noise. Random. Unhelpful. Untrue. And the more you engage with them, the stronger they become. The more real they feel. The more control they have over you. But when you don't, when you notice them and let them pass, something powerful happens. They lose their grip. Slowly and quietly. But consistently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But here's the part people miss. The quality of your thoughts improves when you stop entertaining the bad ones. Not by fighting them. Not by arguing with them. But by not giving them attention in the first place. That's the art. That's the discipline. And it's not easy. Because your mind is used to reacting. Used to engaging. Used to turning every small thought into something big. So when you stop, it feels unnatural. It feels like you're ignoring something important. But you're not. You're protecting your peace. Let's make this practical. Next time a negative thought shows up, don't chase it. Don't analyze it. Don't try to fix it immediately. Just notice it and let it pass. Like background noise. At first, it won't be perfect. You'll still get pulled in. You'll still react sometimes. That's normal. But the more you practice this, the more space you create in your mind. And that space is where clarity lives. That space is where control lives. That space is where peace begins. Now imagine this version of you. Someone says something negative, it doesn't stick. A bad thought appears, it doesn't take over. A situation goes wrong, it doesn't ruin your entire day. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger internally. And once you reach that level, everything changes. You stop feeling overwhelmed. You stop feeling easily triggered. You stop feeling like your emotions control you. Because now, you're the one in control. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And this is what he meant. Not controlling the world. Not controlling people, but controlling yourself. Your reactions. Your attention. Your thoughts. That's freedom. Real freedom. And most people never reach it because they never learn to ignore. They react to everything. And because of that, they feel controlled by everything. But you're not going to stay there. Not after this. Because now you see it clearly. And once you see it, you can't go back to being unaware. Now here's where it all starts to come together. Because ignoring is not just about peace. It's also about something most people want, but don't know how to get. Which is respect. Real respect. Not the loud kind. Not the forced kind. The kind that people feel without you saying a word. And the way ignoring creates that might surprise you. But before we go there, quick one. If you've been listening this far, you're not just consuming content. You're upgrading how you think. So hit like, not for me, but to lock this into your own mind. It sounds small, but actions reinforce identity. Now stay with me. Because what you're about to understand next is why the less you react, the more powerful you become, in ways you didn't expect. So now let's go into respect. The real one. The kind you don't have to ask for. The kind people feel when you're not even trying. And here's the part most people miss. Respect doesn't come from reacting to everything. It comes from not needing to. Think about it. The person who argues with everyone, explains everything, defends every small point, tries to prove themselves in every situation. Do you truly respect that person? Or do they feel a bit unstable? A bit too available? A bit too easy to pull into anything? Now think about the opposite. Someone who doesn't respond to everything. Someone who speaks less but means more. Someone who doesn't feel the need to prove anything. Someone who stays calm even when tested. That person feels different. And you know it. You don't question them. You don't test them as much. Because there's something about them that feels solid. Unshaken. And that feeling, that is respect. And it didn't come from what they said. It came from what they didn't react to. Let that sink in. A lot of your power is in what you choose to ignore. Because when you react to everything, you make yourself predictable. Easy to read. Easy to control. People know exactly how to get to you. Exactly what triggers you. Exactly how to pull your attention. But when you don't, when your reactions are controlled, when your attention is selective, you become unpredictable. And that changes everything. Because now, people can't easily figure you out. They can't easily provoke you. They can't easily pull you into things. And that creates a natural boundary. A silent one. You didn't announce it. You didn't explain it. But it's there. And people feel it. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And real bravery is not reacting when it's easier to react. It is holding your ground internally. When everything around you is trying to move you. Now here's something deeper. Ignoring doesn't just protect your peace. It increases your value. Because in a world where everyone is constantly talking, constantly reacting, constantly trying to be seen, the one who is selective stands out. The one who doesn't chase attention becomes attention. And this is where it shifts from just peace to presence. Your presence becomes stronger, heavier, more noticeable. Not because you're louder, but because you're not easily moved. And people respect what they can't easily influence. Now let's make this very practical again. Imagine two people in a situation. One reacts immediately, raises their voice, defends themselves, explains everything. The other listens, pauses, responds only if necessary, and sometimes says nothing. Which one looks more in control? Which one looks stronger? Exactly. And that's the shift you're building. Not by doing more, but by reacting less. Now here's where most people get confused. They think ignoring means you lose opportunities, lose connections, lose influence. But it's the opposite. When you stop giving your attention away freely, it becomes valuable and scarce. And people value what's scarce. It's human nature. The more available you are, the less you're valued. The more selective you become, the more you're respected. Not because you're playing a game, but because you understand your worth. And you act like it. That's the difference. Now be honest with yourself again. Have you been too available? Too reactive? Too easy to pull into things that don't matter? You don't need to answer out loud. You already know. And that awareness is where the shift begins. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now here's something important. This is not about becoming cold. Not about disconnecting from people. Not about ignoring everything. It's about choosing better. Choosing what deserves your energy. Choosing what deserves your response. Choosing what deserves your time. And letting everything else pass. That's balance. That's control. That's strength. And once you build that, you don't need to force respect. It comes naturally. Because people can feel that you're not easily moved. That you're not desperate for attention. That you're not reacting to everything. And that alone changes how they treat you. Now we're getting close to the final shift. The one that ties everything together. Because at the end of the day, this is not just about ignoring people or ignoring thoughts. It's about how you live your life. How you move through the world. How you protect your energy. How you stay focused on what actually matters. And if you get this final part right, you don't just gain control. You gain direction. Real direction. But before we go there, if this is starting to change how you see things, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to that one person who reacts to everything. You know the one. Or better, be the example first. Let them notice the difference. Now stay with me. Because the final piece is where everything becomes clear. And where you start living differently, not just thinking differently. So we bring everything together, because this is where most people either change, or go back to old habits. At the end of the day, this is not really about ignoring people. It's not even just about ignoring thoughts. It's about one thing. It is about where your life is going. Because whether you realize it or not, your attention is shaping your entire life. Every reaction. Every distraction. Every moment you give your energy to something that doesn't matter, they are all taking you somewhere. Slowly. Quietly. But consistently. So the real question is not, should I react to this? The real question is this worth my life? Because that's what you're spending. Not just time. Your life. Moment by moment. And when you start seeing it like that, everything changes. Suddenly that argument doesn't feel important. That comment doesn't feel urgent. That distraction doesn't feel worth it. Because now you see the cost clearly. And most things are too expensive. Now imagine this version of you again. You wake up, and your mind is not already crowded. You move through your day, and small things don't pull you in. You hear things, see things, experience things. But you don't absorb everything. You choose. You filter. You stay focused. That's not luck. That's discipline. That's the result of protecting your attention consistently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So ask yourself, what color is your mind right now? Is it calm? Focused? Clear? Or is it filled with noise? Distractions? Unnecessary reactions? Because whatever it is, that's what your life is becoming. And if you don't like the answer, you don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to start choosing better. One moment at a time. One reaction at a time. One decision at a time. Because control is not built in big moments. It's built in small ones. Repeated daily. Now here's something most people don't realize. When you stop reacting to everything, you create space. And in that space, you start to see things clearly. Your priorities. Your goals. Your direction. Things that were always there, but were buried under noise. Under distraction. Under constant reaction. And once you see clearly, you move differently. You stop wasting energy. You stop chasing things that don't matter. You stop getting pulled into things that don't align with where you're going. Because now you have direction. And direction is power. Real power. Not the kind that reacts, but the kind that chooses. Now let's make this practical one last time. From today, start small. Don't try to become perfect overnight. Just pick one thing. One situation. One pattern. Where you usually react and choose differently. Pause. Step back. Say less. Or say nothing at all. That's it. Simple but powerful. And the more you do that, the more you take your life back piece by piece. Moment by moment. Until one day, you realize something has changed. You're calmer. More focused. Less affected. More in control. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger internally. And that's the goal. Not a perfect life. A controlled mind. Because with that, you can handle anything. Now before we close, let me leave you with something that will stay with you. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Read that again in your mind. Your mind is complicit. Meaning, you allowed it. Not consciously, but automatically. And now, you're breaking that pattern. You're taking that control back. And that alone changes everything. So from now on, move differently. Not everything deserves you. Not everything deserves your attention. Not everything deserves your reaction. Protect your mind. Guard your energy. Choose your focus. Because that's where your power is. And once you truly understand that, you stop living by default. And start living by design. Now if you made it this far, you didn't just watch a video. You stayed. You listened. You reflected. And that already puts you ahead of most people. So do this. Drop one word in the comments. Unshaken. If that's the version of you you're building. It sounds simple. But it locks in the identity. And if this gave you clarity, share it. Because someone out there is still reacting to everything. And they don't even realize it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Stoic Quiet Strength. Not for me, but for the version of you that refuses to stay distracted, reactive, and controlled. There's a full playlist in the description. Go through it slowly. Let it rewire how you think. And in the next 10 seconds, don't scroll away. Just sit for a moment. And ask yourself one question. What am I going to stop reacting to, starting today? That answer might change your life. This is Stoic Quiet Strength. See you in the next video.